something they want to just tell us why they hear us differently, we can pass it all the time. Unique story, etc.
I mostly work on Tableau, and I wanted to find out what Power BI has to offer. I've used it a few times before, not thoroughly, but I wanted to know what it knows about Power BI, what it can offer, and how it is different. I am a student. I'm also working at NTT as an intern.
I don't know what to say.
Is there anybody in here who actually hasn't used Power BI at all yet? They're like, I see the yellow and black thing, but yay, brave new people. This is exciting. Welcome.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, but this is a revolution. I always tell people this is a revolution because for me, I'm talk about me. My face is all over the place. This is a revolution that you know. I love peer reviews. I love reading, third party recommendations. So like we always say, the Gardner report, the Forrester report. You have to don't just listen to us. Do some research. Okay, I can't say anything about it. Just do your own research. I've tried ClickView before. I've tried Tableau slightly. I can't say they know, but it's like I'm maybe because I'm comfortable with this because it has the Excel. It's bringing the whole Excel thing back in here. So that's for me. Like you do your own research. Okay. What's the next slide?
Spontaneous.
I don't know if you saw, there was a user group in Portland that, I can get you the name of the blog, but he did a presentation this week and was talking about how, for Visual Studio and SQL, the tools that are in Power Query, that tool set, those two things are starting to basically converge.
Yep.
And that whatever you can do in Visual Studio, you could do that and more potentially through. Did you see that same thing through Power Query? So that's one of the reasons that Power BI is very better tool. So.
So we get more testimonies. Before we get started. Anybody have a unique story?
Gentlemen who came in, we're just we're waiting for pizza for one, which is why we are treading water here.
Yeah.
Curious to know the gentleman who just walked in, is anybody new to this group?
First time coming to this group.
Okay.
So, yeah, I signed up a while ago, but
Okay, great. And anybody not used Power BI yet? Okay, so you're all at least somewhat experienced. Okay, or we're just trying to figure out who the mixed people we've got here. Great.
We asked that question because we don't want the presentations, maybe not today, to be like, ooh. I had a guy here who was in finance management or something like that. It was like, ooh, I said, yeah, but anyway, we're gonna be all right. So,
how often
Yeah.
do y'all have these?
yeah.
How often do you?
Every day.
Is it
Once
once
a
a month?
month.
Okay. Every first Tuesday.
Every first Tuesday, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the topics vary based on the audiences we have, or based on speakership availability. Okay, that's a good point. That's why we have the volunteers there. If you sign up on the community, you want to speak, you get points for. That's why last minute he rushed it. He's like, I don't want to. Yeah, that's okay. You speak, it's like, who knows, participate in the community. One day you just get an email from Microsoft, hey, you be appointed to be a Microsoft MVP. I'm just saying. Yeah. So, but anyway, so we encourage folks to be on the community. Meetup is cool, but we want Microsoft. We want the platform to track. We're not doing anything illegal, but we wanted to track the conversations, the discussions, the issues we talk about. If there's a bug, we'll start talking about that. We're like, oh, what do you think about this feature? So I know they're tracking. Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know exactly how their algorithm works. You might know better, but I got identified to be a part of this Power BI Champions program. And I'm sure it was a combination of being on the community, the data sets I published, I'm sure they can kind of track that through Office 365 or whatever, but, just probably even all the searches I've done for tax equations and stuff like that. But, so I think it all probably came together, but the Power BI champions have given some kind of advanced insight onto what some of the features are going to be. So that's kind of cool. I enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks for elaborating. That's why we encourage people to sign up on the community. I think we have the links from there too. So.
Good.
Yeah, okay, without wasting too much time, let the speaker introduce himself. Sorry.
Hello. Can you hear me properly? Hello? Hello. Can you hear me now properly or no? Maybe because. How about now? No. Interesting. Can you hear me properly? That's interesting. Okay. Just to give me an introduction, my name is Pradesh Matthew. I'm actually a board member of the Power BI here, and I have some certification, and I'm also Power BI certified. I'm actually manages a data team in DataScan, so we do scanning basically for the inventory management. So I would like to discuss a little bit of how the business users can get into the Power BI world and the Power platform to begin with, and how you can really democratize the data, because it's always IT owns the data, and nobody like a business analyst can never get into the real data piece. So in order to just to start, normally everyone start with a detail out of a presentation, but I'm going to do a demo first to gather basic information of you all. I hope everyone has at least a mobile device, so I can go to a website and collect the basic information about yourself and what is your level of sort of proficiency in Power BI, and also basically I'll show you what it exactly is just through a website in Azure, and save that information to Azure SQL, and from the SQL uses Microsoft Flow, which is mostly, I'll explain to you how that works and show that in a streaming and visualize it in Power BI. That's what I'm trying to do, because you can see that this has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pieces to it. One of them is not working. Bear with me. So this is just my website. I changed it to just for this. So it has just a name, email ID, and a role, and a Power BI proficiency. So I have an Azure SQL, which has just one table, which is just a survey ID, name, email ID, role, and the proficiency. So with that, I'm going to create first a data set in the streaming in the Power BI itself. So since I logged in already, it doesn't prompt me to log in. So I don't know how well versed you are in Power BI, but I'm just going to walk through the whole thing in one shot and then come back to this later. So basically it has different workspaces you can set it up. I'm just going to use one of them, what I already have. And here we have a skip here and the data set. You can create a data set here, right here, the streaming data set. So this is one of the features, new features where you can stream the data directly to a data like a dashboard without even refreshing. It will automatically show you the data. So I use the API and let's call it as survey. Correctly. Try to do case sensitive. Name. So it actually creates a JSON for you. If you are not familiar with this, it's basically underneath it uses a JSON object, and I just create this. Oops, I missed one step. I'm going to delete this quickly, or let me see whether I can edit it. Yeah. In order to stream, I need to on this. So I'm going to Power BI Desktop now to just create a report out of this data set. Yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to even open the Power BI Desktop. Should have opened it earlier. Okay. Kansas. Basically, I'm going to get that data set. So this is a feature where you can directly connect to that. And this is my workspace, and this is the so I got all this information, but I'm going to create a measure out of this quickly to just count it. So this basically count row, and my table name is real time data. Sorry for that. So I'm going to save this as just a test here. And basically what I want to do is to see the data as it comes. So I'm just going to select all of them. And I want to see the count. And I want to slice something by role. And give it a maybe a pie chart. And a proficiency and a count. Maybe we'll put a line graph. So there's no data, that's why we're not seeing any of those things. So I'm going to save this and going to publish this to Power BI. So we have the publish button. So it's trying to publish it. So it's already there. So I'm going to open it here in the Power BI. So this is the actual one, but I'm going to ping this to a dashboard. I'm going to create this as test. So I need to pin all of them. So Okay, so I have it here. So what I need is now I have the pieces from a collect and a database, but not the flow yet. So what I basically need to do is when an entry is entered, a record is entered into the survey table in the Azure through the website, I want to trigger and show that in a data set on the Power BI. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the Microsoft Flow. This is also another similar to Power Apps. So a little explain detail out of how it works is in a while. So I just created from a blank. So since I'm dealing with the SQL Server, sorry for this. So I just select this, and it has already pre-built triggers where when an item created, what I want to do it. So since I already logged in, I have all the tables what we are connected to on the Azure, but the survey is the one which what I'm interested in. And this has a lot of filters. You can filter it and says, okay, what the top count or order by. I'm not going to look into any of those things right now. What I need is once entry is made in the survey, I need to create a push that to Power BI. So I'm going to put Power BI here. So this has add rows to the data set. So that's the event I want to trigger. So I'm going to go to my workspace, which is Power Scan, and in the data set, the survey, which is actually pulling it directly from Power BI. So that's the tight integration you can see right there. And the good thing is, I can select the table, and now I have it actually populates all the parameters that needs to be passed in. And if you click the survey, it actually shows what needs to come from. So I'm just going to map it. You can do transformation here, whatever ways you want, split it, whatever normal ETL stuff, name, email ID, role, proficiency. So I'm going to save this and name this as, let's say, test. Save it again. Go back here. So this is like sort of a dashboard for the Microsoft Flow, where you can actually see what's the history, when it ran, and those type of things. So just to test this, I'm going to, hopefully this will work, but let me see whether I can. Okay, so this I need, so I'm going to do it left. And let me get the actual dashboard also as a different one. Okay. Hopefully we can see some data. So I'm going to write in some information here on my screen. So I'm going to select an interim and submit this. So what it does is it's insert one record into the Azure one, and it actually pulls that information from Microsoft using the Microsoft Flow. Basically, it takes that data from this web page. It's very basic ASP.NET, which I actually write myself, and insert into it that table, the survey table, and then it's try to use the Microsoft Flow. It take a minute to refresh because of the subscription, so it came here. So what I would like you guys to do is just log into my website, which is pradeshmatthew.com. I'll put it here. So it's with a 1T, okay, and 2 E's. So if you can log into that from your any of your mobile devices or laptops, so that at least this is one of the tasks being assigned to me as a board member, where I can gauge people's proficiencies and also what type of people are coming to this. So we will use this basically for the next round of who is going to speak and what type of content they're going to provide. If everyone is new, then we'll go from Power BI start, because I have presentations of basically what is Power BI and how we can start like a jump start thing. So let me go back to this one. Oh, somebody already did? Yes. pradeshmatthew.com. So it's this one. It's right here. So actually I made a mistake of pinging these two together. So let me get the actual this one so that oh, so you can see who is adding.
It refreshes itself.
Yeah, it automatically refreshes. This is one of the advantages of Power BI streaming. So, for example, IoT devices, you want to show on a screen or a projector, or even say it's all some sort of transactions coming, like from maybe there's a, let's say, EasyPass. They want to see the traffic flow, or even our case, it's more of a scanning on the inventory, how the number of the scanning happens. So there's a lot of use case for this one, which is actually tightly integrated with the .NET C#4 with API, REST APIs. You can directly call those. You don't need to show it on the Power BI. You can actually use the code to programmatically show it in your own application, leveraging this.
Is it refreshing from the SQL table?
Yes. So
incrementally or just full refresh every time?
So there's options to set it up incremental. This is a event-based trigger. So whenever a new event is happening, meaning that whenever you enter the record, so it is basically incremental.
What is the difference, like instead of Microsoft Flow, if we directly pitching the survey table, whatever that gets implemented from the website, like what is the actual difference between?
Okay, I'll show you that, because I can directly connect to my Power BI. And, yeah, and view the table, but you have to refresh it. But this one is actually streaming directly.
Okay.
So that gives you a use case scenario where you want to do some action based on something, whether it is creating a record. I've just showed SQL because I'm a database guy, but there are use cases where, let's say, very basic one, I'll show you that as a video, where your managers, you send an email to something, which is your organization has some sort of workflow on top of that for approval. You can use Microsoft Flow to do that very easily, quickly, and integrate it tightly with the existing application, whether you're using SharePoint. Let's say you create a SharePoint forms and you entered something there, you want to show it in some other applications, like even in an email sent to your the approval, you can easily automate that piece. There's A lot of templates already pre-built, so it's just a drag and click. It's basically giving the users, basically the business users, flexibility to create instead of going to IT and ask for budget and blah blah.
So you need some kind of write access to the Azure database and
Yes.
as far as
Uh-huh.
credentials go.
Some of the way you are getting is where the database is,
Yes.
and the API JSON that you wrote,
Uh-huh.
if you are fully linked to this Power BI canvas
Yes.
to show what all the fields you want,
Uh-huh.
that's what kind of show.
Yes. So it's basically you are entering some record, whether it can be SQL or whether it can be anything. SharePoint, if you just enter a new record in SharePoint list and you want to do some action on that, you can still use Microsoft Flow. That's the advantage. Not like, we actually you can even use it with a third party, like, SurveyMonkey or any of those things, and you want to trigger something out of that, you can easily use that because they provide a lot of templates. So it seems like 29 is a good number, or we're still missing somebody.
The key with this one is that you started from the service to create the streaming data set
Uh-huh.
versus starting on a desktop to get data.
So there is the streaming works a little bit differently because you have to have a data set first. So that's why I started in the Power BI services. Normally you start from Power BI desktop and publishing. So the streaming has that JSON and the interfacing piece is actually only in Power BI services. That's why I started from there. So just to show this, as one of the guys said earlier, how we can use this. I think I have another. Okay, so the same thing, I just created a brand new Power BI desktop. This you might have already seen this type of animations where you can create your own visuals if you are, and there are different marketplace where you can acquire, and if by looking at the sea, so the developer is the big fish here. So at least I can see that part.
What's that visual called in the marketplace?
It's called aquarium. This is one of the they did a demo, like a sort of a competitions long time back, I think in 2015 or so, to create visuals. So one of them is aquarium. You can see a fancy, more of a creative thought process rather than doing something visually, like, pie chart or those type of things. So
And this is the data from the surveys we just.
yeah, this is just the data from the survey. I just connected it to like the normal SQL. I can connect and then get the information and then pull the same thing. So I already connected to that survey, so I just refresh it, and that's why I can basically create it from the scratch too. Any questions so far?
But in that one, you would have to refresh.
Yes, that's that, and also it is my desktop. I cannot share it. This one, the beauty is you can, like, if you have a big projector where you want to get the data as it comes. For our case, is like a who's counting today, or we can showcase that company, those type of things.
You can do the whole. So you can pull up the data from the Excel sheet, whatever Excel sheet provided, I mean, to the Power BI and generate the.
From Excel? Oh, yeah, any tools. Doesn't matter whether it's web or Excel or even actually, I don't know how many were here when Derek presented the community services in Power BI. You can have a PDF and recognize the image, put it here. A lot of features. Now it's accessible to the, basically we call it nowadays citizen developers. You might have heard about what is citizen developers. I'll just touch base a little bit on that. So it's basically making people who are non-real IT code, making them as real developers so that we can get the advantage of their business knowledge to leverage the business rather than just relying on the IT.
Can you stream through your on-premises database?
Yes.
Through gateway?
Yeah, the same thing. You need a gateway in between. You can try with a personal gateway to begin with, and you may need to pay for the enterprise one. If you have a premium license, it all comes in one package. I'm not going to talk about licensing fees, but
I do have a question on that. The Microsoft Flow, is that like same, does that come under the, no?
so the Power BI. So I'll explain you a little bit higher on a level above this on the next couple of slides. Then you'll understand that I can answer that. All right. So I think we are good on this piece. Okay, so we all know that now Power BI is a visual interface, right? So like a front end piece, but there is more than just the Power BI platform. You consider the Power BI as one of the pieces in the puzzle, whereas the overall is what Microsoft is promoting is the basic concept of the Power, like a Power Platform, where you can create the application in Power Apps and do the triggering, whatever the workflows in Power Microsoft Flow, and then visualize in the Power BI. So we are at the consumer end with the Power BI. But you have to think through the process where you start with some sort of entry to the system. So we basically collect the data. So for that, we have enterprise-wide software right now with any organization, either CRM or their own custom developed product. But how to integrate that with the different pieces is always a challenging, because account means something to this app versus another app. Account means something entirely different. So there is no consolidations or having a common model. So what Microsoft did is basically, I don't know how many of you worked on Dynamics or Microsoft CRM previously. So what they did is basically they leveraged their Microsoft CRM, which is Dynamics 365 now, the basic platform, which has entities and relationships, and instead of having tables and columns and blah blah, they define account has X number of attributes and you customize it as you need it. So they leverage that features of the Dynamics and converted it as a platform called Power Platform, which runs basically underneath is the common data services, and these three components together, and any Microsoft offerings connect to this, either Dynamics 365 or 365 or even Azure, anything. And the new thing, like the Azure data services also connects to this, or even the Power BI data flow stuff, which I think Derek showed that last time. So, and even the reporting services on-prem, which I think Ryan showed that like 2 weeks, last year. So all those can be integrated now together. So I'll just go a little bit further down into actual. So it's basically Power Apps is the application front end, where you can actually create very quickly with just drag and drop in the browser itself, create your own application. So there are different ways, like a Canvas application. I'll show you one which I created for my company also, where I have an enterprise-wide scanner itself, but I can use with Power Apps, create the scanner in maybe like 30 minutes, because they have provided the barcode controller, so I can just drag and drop and create that. And let's say the survey table which we just created, I want to see, okay, I want to create a basic functionality around that survey table, whether I want to edit or delete one record or enter a new record here or search some of them. I'll show you that quickly, how easy to do that. So this at some point they may consolidate all of this thing together, but now it is Power Apps, Microsoft Flow, and PowerBI.com. The only thing is you need to have the same account subscription basically to log into all of them and interact each other. So it's basically the home page gives you availability or the features where you can create it from a canvas, like a blank one, or a model-driven apps. I will explain you model-driven, which I just touched on the common data model thing, which is basically instead of saving into tables or the columns, whatever, it is actually going to save it in a model with a common data model, which is their base for the Dynamics 365. And start from the data. So let me start from a data and here's how my Canvas app. So it's basically create a studio where you can say I already have this connection because to the Azure, which I already connected. Otherwise, you can create a new connection and connect to any source, your Google Drive or any of those things, or even through an Excel. And it actually pulls up all the data set I have, which is my table, the survey table. I'm going to choose that only, and then I'm going to connect. And it's trying to build me the app, which actually creates me 3 screens automatically. The CRUD operations you can easily do quicker. So what it does is you can preview here itself. So all the information. So let's say. So I just search for guy and I can see that immediately here, right? So how cool it is, because I didn't write any single line of code in order to do basic stuff like this. Normally you have to write in an old way, you have to write insert, update, delete statements, either through a direct link or whatever you're using, or even a stored procedure to pass in the parameters and blah, blah. So here, even you can refresh it, you can sort it. All those functionalities comes by default, and let's say, yeah, somebody tested for me. So this gives the informations, and I can even edit this, and I can delete this. All those features comes quickly without even doing any programming. So that means, let's say in a business use case where you want to do a small app to enter some order entry information, like a finance guy wants to do an order entry. I know most of the firms where I work, basically they either go through Excel or the paper-based. So they can easily automate this by pointing to the source where they have, or even directly to an Excel, and people typed in an Excel, it automatically refresh here. We can do it, but you have to use the Microsoft Flow then to send that. So you can have a button here and click run the Microsoft Flow where you set it up. Okay, this record goes to this email address with the detailed information. You can do that. So there's a lot of use case. I'm going to show some videos. Hopefully it works here, which gives you an idea how the people are using that. Oh, okay. Okay. So that gives you an idea how a security officer changed basically how they have the passengers like book and underneath the security check office where they can translate it to a different language when somebody asks some questions. So he changed all of them into a Power App where they can look it and see it. So that's very simple use case, and they had the Power Microsoft Office 365 Enterprise licensing and Power Apps, Power BI, everything comes with that. So you don't need to pay. They had that for a while, and he realized that and made a big, and he became some of our adoption specialist. So yep, and the actually been one of the presentation he been called to Microsoft Office in Seattle with Satya to demonstrate this. So pretty sure he got more. All right, so going back to flow. Yeah, I'm going to.
Yeah, we want to take a pizza break. Yeah, let's take a pizza break.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, pizza break. Sorry, 'cause I'm starving.
I've seen that survey. I saw the video on that. I got some on my business, you know. Keep it to the best. Oh, yeah.
Show that. Hope that explains what are the features and what we can use for the Microsoft Flow. So I'm going back to So as you all know that, as I said earlier, Power BI is basically the front end piece when you look at from a Power Platform perspective. Power BI gives stunning reports and everything, but in order to get that data correctly, you know how hard it is to get the data correctly. So if you have a common data platform where the same object means the same in all the application, then that's the right place to start. So that's why Microsoft is coming up with this features, and as I explained earlier, so how this Power Platform is evolved is basically from a Microsoft CRM and Microsoft Dynamics 365 actually built on top of this Power Platform with the common data services as the backbone, basically. So that it's a little tricky here at this point because Dynamics 365 is also a product cycle and it's also a platform where you can leverage that with the different features within the sales. So there's some so as I explained earlier, the Power Platform, which is mostly gives the ability to do stuff what we normally do through a cycle of projects where you design and do all those stuff. Instead, you can work with the business directly and prototype and even build the application with them and get that done going in a much faster way. So I'm going to show some Power Apps, what how it can use actually in a mobile device. So this is one of the app what I created for just as a demo purpose for our enterprise application is basically scanning the barcodes and storing that in a database for the inventory purposes. And we have a lot of other features, but the core is that. So what I did it here is just a basic couple of screens where it shows the data and items. So let me see whether I can connect this through the phone to show and just scan and show our data, how it's easy to create that piece. Let me go for this one. All right, so this is the app similar to Power BI. There's a Power Apps also, you can download it and you can actually access the same thing whatever you're doing here in this one. I'm going to type in login. Secret password. So it's basically connecting to the same Azure Power BI, Azure SQL server, what I showed previously, and it actually pulls the data for this, and I have a full inventory. I'm going to click on that one, and it brings up the data for whatever it needs to happen on this one. So it connects to another table and get the corresponding data for that, counting what are the different stores that count on that day. So I'm going to do for watch just to, and this gives me a screen and I have a piece of paper with a scan barcode. So I'm going to scan the one of them by say start scan. So it gives me the scan code immediately here. So now you can think about the use cases. If you're going to shopping, you can create your own apps and do whatever you want to do. Then let me do one more scan. Okay, so this basically our application is scan this and get into database, and then you know what else we can do with that. So here I have really all those functionality. You can either code it or give the details of that informations or go back. It's all easy to do that. I'll show you some of the little bit codes here, and this gives you a real world example where you can do with any device the Power Apps, and it actually helps in building even POCs or prototype to begin with and showcase that to you. Then I have another one here. I'm going to connect back here.
Just to be clear, you installed on your Power app
Yes.
from Microsoft, both the Power App that you
Uh-huh. So have you used the Power BI apps? Same concept. So the good thing with how they're going in this direction is everything is same, at least within the application. Normally that's not the case.
So all the users should have the Microsoft.
Yes. Right now it is actually within the Power apps where you have to log in with the Microsoft account, where it is your Windows authenticated with Azure. You may have your own Active Directory linked to Azure, then you can use that. So it depends how you set it up in your organization, whether it is cloud-based and created, or if you have, let's say, Microsoft 365 with an enterprise, you might have already the licensing for a number of people for your organization, because it comes as a package with the Microsoft 365. But if you are a Dynamics customer, then you have more features which you can use. But the licensing piece, I'm not going to talk.
But we cannot publish our end customer.
You can, depends upon how you licensing, and depends upon how you your model looks like, right? If your customer has separate tenant for each of these instances, very well you can do that. So let's to give you an idea, like very basic thing for a login. What I do is just there's a concept of call. Basically, you create a variable which can be a table also, and you just say filter the user is my actual table. I'm just filtering it by user table, and right now I'm just hard coding with email ID and password and comparison. And if the count is equal to 1, I'm saying okay, I'm good. I'm just logging to do this. Otherwise, it says notify login failed. So this is a very simple login screen logic. But if you wanna, let's say, something like a close button, it's just say exit. That's it. You don't need to write any other stuff. And as I said, you don't need to even do all these things. If your model is done in right way, you can just point to that, it automatically creates you. So the best thing is, if you have 100 tables with an enterprise application in your local, you can actually try and see what are how it plays around. Then same goes with the like a gallery, and the good thing is you have different options here. You can insert like normal labels, buttons. Good old days in the ASP.NET development in Visual Studio, you can drag and drop and create the controls, the same concept, but in a more formalized way where the citizen developers can create their own app and basically create, instead of having IT as a separate entity, you are merging with IT, collaborating together to get into a new product, which is really beneficial for the business, because only the citizen developers knows, because I've been into IT field for a long period. Now I understood that I should have been a business guy in order to demonstrate things, because what will happen is normally we start with a requirement gathering through a business analyst and get to the IT guys. They go their own sprint and blah, blah on whatever schedules, depends upon the priority. Meantime, business talks to clients and change even the overall layout of things. Even very basic things like, the button has to be here, those type of things change drastically nowadays in terms of how business runs because everywhere there you can see the change.
I mean to say that .NET applications can be redesigned or done in PowerShell. That's a limitation.
So right now, it's in sort of not a real mature product like Power BI, because if you look at Power Apps, it's 2 years or 3 years time period, so that it has its own limitations. For example, the barcode control I showed, they changed it after I started as a POC with like this February. So I started in February 1st doing the stuff, and then I had some other priorities, so I came back to this like last week to do this my own way. When I see that control is changed drastically and the code is reduced drastically, so they keep on pushing things so fast in a weekly basis rather than Power BI. You all know that they release a monthly basis. It used to be at the beginning, so it has its own limitations. But what I say is, at least from my usage of this, whatever I can do in C# .NET development, because I was a hardcore C# developer for a long time back. So all those features, and additionally the Microsoft Flow comes into a bigger role where you can actually automate all the workflow. So the business flows is the key things, right? When you code it, the user interface is nothing nowadays because you can render it in any format and any ways. Are we good for another 10 minutes or? Okay, so I have a couple more slides to go over. So the basic challenge, what we always has the budget constraint. So this alleviates that from a business perspective, because you can, if you already have a Microsoft enterprise licensing, you can start day one without even discussing anything with any other team. You can start your own app and showcase that to the business and come up with a solution, because most of the managers, myself being a manager, I would like people to come to me with a solution rather than a problem. So if I'm going to go with the, let's say use case, what you said is that you want to trigger somebody email notification. If you come up with a solution to your manager, it's not going to resist because it's not going to be any budget associated with that. And some of them is the time and the resources, because you see how fast we can do that piece, and with the resource constraints, because I'm not a C# developer to do all the coding piece. Instead, a business user can just start building those things. And some of them are paper process, like those can be easily automated. There are a lot of controls, even PDF viewer. There is a lot of features available here, and all other stuff is the normal IT constraints. So what you can see that we are mostly like giving the data to the end user as a business user and democratizing the data. There is a caveat to that, right? Because as you think, all of this data, especially a PHI or PCI compliant data, you're giving it to a business user. Who knows how they're going to use it? So, but within the Microsoft Power Platform, you already have the security in place, whether it is through Office 365 or through your Azure or through your Dynamics 365. So one good thing with that aspect is you already have the infrastructure, security devices already built around it, and you just give the access to the data, whoever needed. So from that aspect, what I can foresee is that no, there won't be any always IT owns the data, like database and everything. They're going to maintain. So the spectrum is going to change a little bit slightly, where IT really manages things, and the consumers is going to be shift from a business and also a IT sort of, or even a business person, like a business analyst, can get into IT world where they can code stuff. So this slide explains what right now in a real world scenario where you have Word, PowerPoint, Excel, SharePoint, Access, and similar stuff. Most of the people knows, and from a business perspective. But C# or .NET, there's a very less number of limited resources. So this Power Apps, Platform helps to leverage these people who can really do and understand the business, and they know exactly what they want, and they can use their own way of creating their own products for leveraging the business and help others too. So as you know, there are different technology improvement happens, like data virtualization or data federated softwares, even the cloud services and the self-services BI applications that helps all this democratization of the data in a faster pace. So that's going to happen irrespective of whether there is a thought process around, okay, I want to secure everything, but as you can see that the Power Platform itself helps you to leverage all the data points to anybody. So coming back to why it started and how, because I thought of starting with this one, but always better to show some data points and convince people. So what Microsoft is done, this is like last year, that what they did is they partnered with the Adobe and SAP, create an open data initiative, basically saying that I know the metadata of any business objects, whether it is an account or a patient or anything related to business. I can create that as a data model rather than creating somebody like a data architect. I was a data architect to create basic tables and says, okay, this is how it is related. Instead, you already have a predefined set of common objects being across on most of the applications. So I'll show you some of them a little bit. So it's basically giving you a metadata system. As you can see on the right hand side, you have a layer of the common data model, and different apps can talk to the same. So it's basically making every app speaks the same language, rather than right nowadays you had to have integration between different applications. You had to go through a transformation process, or you had to understand like Salesforce table, what are those means. But if it is already in the common data model, you know what it means. So these are the core thing. They already have it in the CRM, in the Dynamics 365, and also in the Power BI, Power Apps, or even in Microsoft Flow, or even in Power BI. Actually, you can even pull that power from let's say you have already an account in the Microsoft CRM 365, where account information you want to show it in a Power BI, you can just point it to that, and you can see that data directly in your Power BI. And Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 also has now coming with a metadata layer on top of. We know that when we write, we don't care. The schema, you read with a schematized, but now we are coming with a CDM folder on top of that on the Azure Lake itself, so that you know what it is each column means, and the other application can consume that. So since I'm running out of time, I'm not going to explain these detailed out. So let's to give you a quick overview. I mean, just where I can see the entities. So you can see all the entities here already predefined based on the Open Data Initiative, which Microsoft started. So you can create your own if you want, and then you can use that as your entity to talk to different applications. So in the account, you have, it may take a while because it has a lot of all the different types of attributes already predefined for you. So when you create, I initially showed that I can use a model driven approach where I can create apps based on this itself. So those who work with the Microsoft Dynamics know well that, and also this gives you all the views and everything already pre-built for you. So you just pick and choose and what you want to do. It's basically, how you customize a CRM application. It's already there. So you just leverage that and use that for your any type of application development also, like an enterprise level application, whether you're starting from scratch, where you want to leverage all these things. So this is the right place to start instead of having a traditional way of doing a SQL database with 100 tables and start off from there. Yes.
Your slides are available on your website. These slides.
Yeah, we are going to post it on the.
Peter Blue? Okay.
Fields are all like predefined ones. Like in case for my
Usage, you can customize.
yeah, if I want to build a new view that is not already available, I'm building a new view. Can I post it to the CDM? Like
Yes, you can actually post it there. That's the advantage. So it's basically you can create your own entity as you need rights, right? Whatever rights you have. Let's say you are a database architect creating a new entity for your new development. You can post that instead of account. I call it as account your company, whatever it is. Then you have 6 columns already compared to whatever they have. You can create your own and you can publish it back to the CDM, which is actually the CDM is common data model. It's a concept. The CDS is the actual entity where we record that is called the common data service. So similar like Power BI services, it's common data service. It's all services and consumption. Yes. Yes. How you define the rights. So this is how if you look at this, I have these two environments. So when you set it up, Power, even the Power BI, if you look at, I showed you when I did the Power BI where you have the apps, right? So if I go to the Power BI piece quickly. So it's all basically get the. I had to log in. So here you have the concept of workspace. So you have the workspace here. The same concept you can only post here, then only you can share with others in your organization, not like my workspace. The same concept. There also you can have your own environment as a my workspace, so nobody can, but you can post it to the other environment. So they call it as environment because it initiates that or the bottom layer, which is PDS, the the common data services. Any more questions? Are we on time? Uh-huh. Yes. No, the reason why I refreshed it, I didn't use a refresh. I showed you another in the Power BI, right? Power BI desktop. The reason why I show is I want to show the data streaming piece where without touching anything, it actually refreshes by itself. So that's a feature, new feature in the Power BI.com where you can stream it. There's a lot of sensors happening, right? It's sensor devices. So this is one of the places where you can use without writing much code. You can actually just plug into your transactional sensor information and stream it. The way I did it is I put it in the database. I want the data from Alex later to see what type of profiling we have. But you can actually use Microsoft streaming. There's a streaming analytics faster directly. So there are different techniques, but I did it this specifically to show that we can write it, trigger it from a table, and at the same time I can keep the data for later use. I don't need to go that route to explain just the data set streaming. I can directly plug in from the Power BI.com API called directly a streaming analytics data set.
Also gives you Microsoft Flow similar to any data integrator or like React.js or something where you try to.
Yeah, it is similar to a data integration piece and much more than that. So if you look at, I think Derek showed you last time here, the data flow in the Power BI, where it's sort of an integrator before getting the data. But flow is basically integrating with the different apps or different processes. Anything, you can think about anything in the world and you want to integrate with it, you can really do that. Even if I'm a tutor, I want to see the sentiment. One of the use cases, as a sales manager, I want to see who's talking about our company and our product. In Twitter or LinkedIn, I can create, even the sales manager can create easily, just drag and drop the Twitter account and then get the data and show it as a save to an Excel sheet, and then present it to the next meeting. Okay, these are the guys, so let's go and jump on this guys. So
As for the emptying the data center with Power BI is concerned, full factor is moving to the data center. So how far the utility is the data center? For example, let's say interface all the data are confidential. As well as the interface to the data center, just the Power BI application. So once after I enter the data, it will be reflected in the Power BI.
yes.
So what are the security concerns you are maintaining in the application to make sure the data contains?
So as it is, Azure is compliance with mostly all of those ISO or PCI or whatever you think about the PHI.
What I'm saying is that I'm not trying to move my data center to the cloud. Is it mandatory for me to move my data center?
No, you can actually connect from an on-prem data all the way to PowerBI.com through a gateway. So you actually, there's a tool, a service called Power BI Gateway. You have to install it on wherever you are going to get that file. And there is other security add-on features where you can actually have a direct VPN over the name from the gateway directly to your PowerBI.com, so there won't be any interference with any other network. I think it's for paid. There's an extra cost for that. Express.
So that VPN might be accessible by a person who has created it.
No, it depends upon the service. So when you create the Power BI gateway, you create actually as a service with a service account. So that service account will have access to your on-prem database. So let's say I have the survey in my on-prem, that service account will have access to my survey table, and it has access to this PowerBI.com. So you may end up in giving another account with less rights, like read only. Restrict that. It is easy to install.
Those object permissions and the account authorization tools management.
So it depends how. For the gateway, if you are doing it, it's called an active account, right? Active directory account. So that is you. If you are using your own internal, you're going to manage. But if you are using an Azure Active Directory, then also you have to go to Azure and set the rights properly. So either way, everything is as a user, as an administrator, you are managing, whether it is an on-prem or whether it is on the. So that's a more of a user adoption thing, because you can have the data still on your on-prem, and through the gateway you can get the data over to Power BI. So that's going to be, depends upon your connectivity, that's going to be delayed, like the data streaming thing. It may take a while to stream that. But if you have express connection, it's much faster.
We can take last two questions if we can.
So, it looks pretty similar to Data Factory.
Yeah.
Is it the same
No, it is actually, one of the feature is data factory similar, but it does more than that, right? So that it can connect to email, it can connect to any app in the world which has a API or it has a user credentials, you connect. So you, even through web, you can connect and get a data set from a web and point it. How would it be similar with use service bus? That's more okay. I'm not.
It is not.
Somebody
Actually,
here
service
asked.
bus is something completely different. We're trying to compare service bus with what? They're not same. Flow is, you're taking data from somewhere, you're manipulating it, you're sending it somewhere. Something else kind of thing. Taking data from a connection and manipulating it.
So when you look at this Power Platform, you have to think in a different way than a developer thinking that, because all of those things is inclined to the business side where they actually make some money for us, right? We develop stuff. So all those things, even Microsoft Pro, if you look at it as it's easy for a business user to create the business flow, which is actually the driving piece for any organization if you look at that way. Because if your application is not doing the correct business flow, the application is not going to generate the money that is required to drive the IT. So what Microsoft Pro is going to be a essential piece in any application development going forward from a business perspective, so that helps them to create their own business flow in a much easier way. Because if I'm going to do a coding to even just do the basic thing what I showed, I'm going to make bugs beginning, right? And then it goes to the cycle.
Where do you see the most cost? That this application has to be hosted or something like that. What's the cost?
So
That's something.
yeah, Azure account is different for Power Apps and Power BI and Power. It's all like different grades, like different plans. At least on the Power App side, the very basic one is things like a $7 per user, but that's like you want to pay. But an advanced one is almost like $40 per user. But it all combined, if you have an enterprise Microsoft account, so that's different scenario. So there's a lot of licensing fees there, but if you're looking at the individual codes, it can vary based on your organization, how you listening to licensing. So I'm not going to explain, because as you know, even Power BI, if you look at, you have a free version, you have a Pro, you have an embedded, you have a capacity with a premium, all different flavors. Within each one, you have, depends upon your user, there is not the cost associated. I can even run Power BI with one license $10 for my 25 users who are very expensive. I can give them 25 free license for them. So that's how you define it and how you work with Microsoft licenses.
Okay, any more questions?
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
That was good.
Thank you, British. Well, guys, thanks for your patience, and one more time for Matthew Pradish.